Let's break down CBS first. How are they bucking or reinforcing some of these trends?
You know, CBS had pretty good numbers today. As you mentioned, they beat on both the top line and the bottom line. When you strip out, the Super Bowl and some one-time items, they did say that revenue at the CBS network was down just slightly. So they are also feeling some of the impacts of a slowing advertising environment, but they're also benefiting from a lot of other revenue streams. They are licensing a lot of the content, the TV content that they produce. They're licensing it to other players, such as Netflix, both domestically and internationally. So they had some good revenue from the licensing side of the business, but they are clearly, I think, probably the most bullish on the advertising outlook as they head into the upfront season in a couple of weeks.
Jerry Smith is also joining us now, our Bloomberg News media reporter. Jerry, I want to ask you about this loss in subscribers. I mean, obviously, we're seeing an impact on the stocks, but cord cutting has been around for the last several years. Why are investors now so spooked by this?
Well, it has been around for several years, but as we saw in this first quarter, it appears to be accelerating again. There was some fears about this a couple years ago. We just saw this was the worst first quarter for pay TV distributors in terms of subscriber losses ever, according to a couple analysts. So, this is something that investors and media stocks really look closely at, is cord cutting, and we're starting to see in this past quarter that it was, is really becoming more and more of an issue.
Meantime, Hulu, AT&T, Dish, Sony, YouTube, all of these are companies that are convinced they can lure customers back by a slimmer live TV package that's cheaper than your, say, traditional cable package. Paul, are customers going to buy in?
It remains to be seen. We're still very much in the early innings. A lot of these over-the-top services or virtual cable companies, if you will. But I think the expectation is that for the content companies, the Viacoms of the world, the Time Warners of the world, the folks that create all the movies and TV shows that people watch, they believe that they will come out in just fine shape going forward as long as they can get paid by whomever is carrying their service, whether it's a traditional cable company like Comcast or whether it's some new player such as Netflix. So the challenge for the media companies is to make sure that they get paid every step along the way by whoever wants to distribute their content.
We're seeing drops in ad revenue at Time Warner, AMC Networks. To a certain extent, it's a vicious cycle, Jerry. But what exactly is behind this?
I mean, there's a couple of things behind it. There's certainly the media executives say that there's broader macroeconomic concerns that are causing advertisers to hold back a little bit. But then there's also just TV ratings are declining, and the TV networks are trying to charge higher prices for commercials, but advertisers are saying, wait a minute, you're charging me higher rates, but I'm reaching fewer viewers. And we're starting to see that those higher commercials aren't making up for the fact that ratings are continuing to decline. So it's sort of on a big macro level, and then also related to the TV industry itself.
What about uncertainty around President Trump's policies, Paul? Is that at play here?
I think it is. We heard last week from the large global advertising agencies, in particular Sir Martin Sorrell from the WPP Group, the largest ad agency in the world, cited the uncertainty around the new administration as one of the reasons that the North American market for WPP was particularly weak in the first quarter. So I think a lot of investors, a lot of advertisers are just kind of sitting on the sidelines a little bit with some of their discretionary advertising budgets, and they want to see how things are going to shake out in terms of some economic policy in the U.S. So that has definitely been called out. The question is, will they come back later in the year? A lot of the media companies expect them to do so. That's why the upfront selling season, which really kicks into gear in the next couple of weeks, where the networks sell most of their advertising inventory in the upfront market, that's going to be a very important time for these big media companies to see as to the health of the advertising market.
Meantime, the up-and-comers like Amazon and Netflix are spending billions of dollars on original content. In the beginning, it was just House of Cards and Transparent, but now there are more original shows on these streaming companies than I can keep up with. Jerry, is it going to pay off, or is there going to be some kind of comeuppance?
I mean, I think we are starting to see that, some of these cable networks that weren't really that big into original series, and now they're trying to create more original shows. There's been a few examples where it hasn't worked out for them, and they've sort of stepped back a little bit. It's very expensive to make original scripted shows. Certainly Netflix and Amazon are lavishing billions of dollars in this space. And so the television networks are trying to keep up. But there's been a few media executives, in particular John Landgraf at FX, who's been sounding the alarm on this and saying that, we may be reaching peak TV, that maybe the economics of the television industry can't sustain this. And that's partly because the viewers are getting fragmented in all sorts of different ways, and so the audiences aren't as big, and the advertising's not there like it used to be.